hello, everybody. Welcome to the Football 360 Show, the fastest hour of talk on the planet. There are social media right there. I am JP Rock, MO on X, JP Rock Scouts U, the letter U on Instagram. And I'm joined, as always, with Mr. Matt Bierman. His social media is as follows.
On X, it is Elite Football and Elite Football Academy on Instagram.
I like how that works like that. How you doing today, Matt?
Doing well.
Beautiful
doing
Tuesday.
Great.
Unbelievable weather. It should stay like this for the remainder of the year.
I'll take it.
Just 75 degrees.
Last week it was raining and nasty.
I was going to say, especially if you're going to be doing any kind of like 7-on-7 or outdoor events.
We got a message we got a tournament this weekend down in Tennessee.
Yes.
And got a message from the guy who's running it.
Yes.
And so that they are monitoring the inclement weather that's pushing in this weekend there, which it's supposed to be. I looked at the weather map. It's supposed to be 70% chance of thunderstorms, not just rain.
Oh.
Which reminds me, a couple years back, we had one of a really good team, and we were we went down to Nashville for a one-day tournament.
No.
We had, oh my God, we were so stacked. Jeremiah McClellan. We had, who else? I mean, there was Cam Epps, just a bunch of guys. Like our defensive backfield was just all DJ Miller.
A hurricane
I'm trying
came
to
up.
Trying to think of all these guys. Like we were really stacked. It was one of those weekends everybody could make it, right?
Oh yeah.
We get down there, and so you're prepared to play pretty much all day.
Yeah.
And which I like those tournaments. You do your pool play, get done, and then they sort everybody, bracket them, and then you play till you lose.
Yeah.
And it rained so hard. It was 100-year, like they said, it was like 100-year storm.
Yeah.
And it flooded downtown Nashville the whole night. We ended up turning around, leaving, coming back home. Total.
Nice.
I think that was like COVID, like around like tail end of COVID.
Yeah.
It was just so
2020. That would make sense. Yeah.
It was so frustrating. But yeah, so these guys, at least the tournament operator is a little bit ahead of it. It's actually
That's
a prep
cool.
red zone tournament. So they're at least communicating. So it means that they're watching it and they're not just hoping and praying and then I think the tournament sold out.
Yeah.
So kind of a pain for them, I'm sure.
I'm telling you, the outdoor tournaments start happening right around, I guess, the past couple of weeks. Some people are doing outdoor tournaments in January, though, which is kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see that every once in a while. But yeah, you really don't know what you're going to get as far as the weather goes outdoor from here until like May.
We had a tournament years ago, Easter, the weekend after Easter in April in Chicago. It was supposed to be like a chilly first day and then nice the next day.
Mm-hmm.
7 inches of snow.
Nice. They keep it?
No.
Did they play?
No.
That's fun football, though. You remember back in the day as a kid?
It didn't do it. Yeah, the park system where we were at didn't let it. It was Rockford, Illinois. And as luck would have it, there was a unused 150-yard indoor complex right in the same deal that they didn't have the presence of mind to rent. I kept telling the guy. And then that group is now out of business. They don't do tournaments anymore.
Surprising how that works. Yeah, 7 inches of snow, that's good for the backyard playing football or the high school field. That
we pulled up on Sunday and they had like a group of kids from like a college that's in Rockford.
Yeah.
Like a bunch of, I guess it was, I don't know, female volunteers, and they had shovels. And imagine shoveling a 400-yard field with a shovel on turf, and it's catching in the turf.
Yeah.
I looked at our guys and said, I think we're better off just heading home.
That's a dedicated volunteer.
Well, yeah, you gotta get your community. Yeah, these people were like signed up to do like check-ins, right?
Oh,
and then
man,
they get their hours. And here's a shovel that we just bought. That's so it's not going to really work. But hopefully this weekend it works out. But that's the problem this spring. I mean, we run our outdoor league every year. It's the same thing,
Which is why the Elite Football Combine is indoors. Just happened last week. Bunch of 7-on-7 stuff coming up, including locally, but Elite 2025 Elite Football Combine happening this past Saturday. Great turnout, great group of young athletes, man. I mean, just really good. Another success story. I mean, just some top level guys earning all kinds of stuff, MVP awards, some merchandise, I mean, I don't even know. It was Supplement Superstore, was it?
Yeah, Team
Form.
Express.
Yeah, Team Express handed out some stuff, some game MVP,
some
game
balls,
ball MVP. Yeah.
Really nice balls, and they got some gift cards to purchase stuff through them, which
got a
they
little bit
do.
of swag, added stuff. And I'm telling you what, here's the thing. It's like, I'm trying to think, how many were there? There were like 8 different like awards, MVP. Could have went on from there.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was, and I mean, I'm messaging guys, just tell them, hey, you know, you were right. And it really was tough.
It is. You know,
this was such a good group. It was really, really tough. There was a young man named Dawson Parrott out of Lincoln, Missouri, which I had to look up where Lincoln, Missouri was, to be honest with you.
I don't know where it's at.
Small town. It's like southwest middle Missouri. He said it's like they're 3 hours from here. Just absolutely killed it. Small school kid. Just I mean, I'm talking, he was right there with the top guys. And I'm sure you probably saw his numbers.
But that's why you come to stuff like this.
Exactly.
If you're living in a smaller town, you come to compete, and the numbers don't lie. So if you're a guy, right?
Yeah.
And it helps gain exposure. But it is funny to me, though. We have guys that live right in the backyard that was a 10-minute trip to do, and they couldn't make it, right? Or you go to Kansas City to do one in Kansas City when it's like you have one right here that's in your backyard. And truthfully speaking, like to me, it's a tactical error because the schools that want the information that we see, we're not a national one, we're a regional, right? We have reach nationally, but we have schools that like to recruit this area that are looking for that data, right? I mean, when I got done, I had numerous colleges in my DMs asking for the numbers, which we do not send out until the kids have gone through them, but it happens immediately.
Yeah. No, I was getting hit up right away. How do I get the numbers?
We want the numbers. We want the numbers.
Yeah. I'm like, you got to wait. Just relax.
Yep.
You'll get sent the link.
But they will. Those guys that want it, they get it first, and then they go out to all the schools. But to me, like, you have to understand how this thing is played. And so many people just get like, oh, I got an invite to go to this one in Kansas City. Newsflash, they invite everybody.
Right.
I talked to kids, and I'm not, naming, like specific groups, but they were inviting kids that are current seniors to come to their combine, right? That invited, right? Kids that are committed to go to other schools.
Right.
Like, come on. Like, again, like if you were looking for someone to give you an invite to make it that you want to go do something.
Yeah.
College football might not be for you because you're looking for adulation and confirmation in the wrong places, right? That should come through having good test results that you can now send out to schools, or you can go back to the drawing board and know that you have more work to do, and you just prepare more for the next time.
Right. When it's like that, right? It's when it's the traveling road show, right? Rolling through town, and they invite everybody. They don't care who you are. They've never heard of you before. They don't care.
Well,
they just want to make sure that everything clears from the financial end, and that's the main deal. And you also want to be leery if it's somebody who's a national or has multiple events where they're like, okay, well, if you come to this event, then we're going to give you this invite to another city further away for you to attend and pay more money and come to. You might want to be a little bit leery of that, because that's really just wanting you to
that's part of the strategy of how it's a multi-layer.
It's a business, correct.
So funny and kind of interesting. The impetus for us to start the Elite Football Combine was for years ago, starting I think in like 2005, there was a major group, and I wouldn't call them major, but at the time they were one of the only ones doing it. And they were doing these underclassmen combines all across the country. Okay. And myself and guys that worked at Elite in our early days would go do these events. And so we were like helping coach them. And what became painfully obvious to me was what the way they do it was they had main guys that kind of ran it. They were from the East Coast, and they would come in, they would set it up. It'd be a one-day event. And then they had them all over the country, though. So these guys would just go out, one weekend, each weekend they were in a different spot, and they had crews in different spots, right? And so it was a pretty good service back then for what was available. But they would do these MVP invites and stuff in the back room after the coaches would meet. So I was involved in that. And the way that they would talk about the athletes in our area like it was just very demeaning and very like
Disrespectful.
very disrespectful because they were from the East Coast. Well,
Oh, yeah.
meanwhile, this area produces far more athletes per
Than the East
capita
Coast.
than they do.
Correct.
It's not even close.
Right.
Not even in the same realm.
Mhm.
But they would sit and degrade and dog kids in our area. And meanwhile, I mean, I think we were at Belleville West. I think it was Belleville West. And we did a combine there, and it rained, and they had no alternate plan. So they had these kids running into a headwind, running their 40s on wet turf.
Wow.
Right. And then they went inside and did like pro agilities and stuff. Kids are slipping because their shoes are still wet. I mean, it was a nightmare.
Right.
But we probably did 4 or 5 years of like kind of that they come through, we would help them with it.
You had
and
enough.
then finally it was like, dude, we're done doing this.
Yeah.
Like we have to stop. Like we have to do our own. And so we have something that's what you see. That's what we're doing. And so
Right. It is one event. It's not trying to be like, oh, hey, you did well here. Now go to Tulsa.
So that's what these guys would do.
Nashville or.
So that's what these guys would do,
yeah,
JP. So they would do.
I remember.
They would say, yeah, that's what it was. They would say, hey, oh, you, and behind the scenes, it was everybody was basically invited to the next one.
Yeah.
And there was like a football camp that's still around today that would come through. They would do the same thing and go, oh, well, you get an invite to the next one, right? And so these families are thinking like, oh, well, great. There's going to be someone at the next one. Like I'm getting recruited. He's a top level guy.
Yeah.
The problem is like in the camp scenario, like you're the top level guy of a bunch of low level guys. I mean, truthfully, usually the big time guys were not going to those camps, especially back then. And if they were doing a 1-day appearance so they can get their invite to the All-American game, like just checking the box, right? We had Brian Wallace and Armand Watts show up to a camp over in Edwardsville just so they can get their Army All-American invite.
Sure.
They do it 1 day.
Yeah.
They did a photo, and that was it.
Which Brian Wallace came as an 8th grader to the elite combine.
Yep.
Right. Which, by the way, one of the first ones. What's so interesting about the elite combine? One of the first guys to attend an early elite combine, Michael Rose, came and
worked at an awesome job.
Yep.
Yeah, brought some good studs from Kansas City.
Yep.
Which, to me, I love the fact that you get the kids from different parts of the state and then around the region in Illinois and some Arkansas, Wisconsin.
Wow. Yeah.
So getting those guys to come in and compete together, I think to me is a fun thing. And then when you show up at Lindenwood, it's kids from even a wider swath. I mean, I know one of our good friends, Dylan Bradley, who's a big time receiver coach out on the West Coast in LA. He played here in town. We trained him and he worked with us for years. And now he started his training business out in California and doing an awesome job. He's bringing guys. He's like, hey, we're coming. So they're bringing guys. And a couple of years ago, he sent a guy, I think it's called Left Coast, their quarterback group. They brought their quarterbacks. And so we got to meet those guys. And they're doing it the right way. They're good guys. They do the right thing. Their motive is clean. They're not carnival barkers where they got, like, hey, go to this thing, go to this thing, go to this thing.
Right. And just, I mean, that's just like elite KC Varsity, same thing. They offer several combines.
Yes.
But they're not like, hey, do well here, and then you can go pay to go to this one. They offer
and that's where you got to be really careful.
You have to be really careful of those. And I mean, the only thing going on was this past weekend, partnered with KC Varsity Combine, 2 players won free entry scholarships to the KC Varsity Combine that's happening May the 3rd at Parkway West.
Yep.
Right. Free. They get to come in. And just, you want to talk about studs that were at the elite combine. I mean, it was amazing, And we're talking about D1 guys being there. Jake Plummer, Rocco Marriott, who just killed it in everything.
Nick McClellan.
I
mean, like
Brett Ottensmeyer.
Brett Ottensmeyer killed it.
Yeah, it's just
he's an intriguing one. He's
Bryson
a guy.
Wessel.
He's a guy who's grown. He's 6'4", probably 2. I don't know what his official weight was.
Which one? Ottensmeyer or Marriott? Because they're both 6'4", yeah.
Yeah, so he's 6'4". Let me see here. My eyes are not the best.
He put up some good numbers, man, like a 32, 33 inch vertical.
Yeah, so 6'4", 195, 4'9", ish, 4.99,
Laser.
4.98. Yeah.
I mean, that's great.
4.28 in his pro agility, 9.5 broad jump, and then 32-inch vertical leap.
You want to play D1 ball as a quarterback, you got to be below 5.
Yes. Yeah, that's the thing, is you don't need to be like, some guys, their game is rocket level fast, right?
Mhm.
Like that's just who they
Like
are.
Rocco.
Yeah. I mean, that's it. Rocco Marriott absolutely killed it.
391 pro agility.
Yes.
I mean, that's moving at 6'4", 212 pounds.
Yes. I mean, he is, he's
quick.
a great athlete. He's going to have a couple. I don't know the exact, I've done like the top 10s of all time, but he'll be in a couple categories. He'll be in a couple top 10 categories. That the 391 will certainly be there. And I think the 40 will probably be in the top 10 all time. So as you start talking about that, that's thousands of kids that have done it.
Yeah.
So good. Kudos to him. I mean,
like those big time guys, all D1 offers showing up. Brennan Shashin.
D1 offers. He threw tested well.
Great quarterbacks, great linemen there, great receivers, future guys like Max Jones. We were talking about him at the combine. Reminds us could be on that same trajectory as a Jack Brown.
He's a Jack Brown, Ridge James kind of guy. He's big,
6'5", 207 pounds.
Yeah.
And
he's just mature. I mean, he's young. It's not like he's a freshman.
He's a baby gazelle. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got those guys that can make those plays. And I think another kid I thought did really well. Testing, I think he did fine, but I think playing wise, Jeremy Williams from Lafayette, he was a ball hawk, just all over the place. And so, truth be told, the way it works in a lot of these combines, it'll be the same thing at Lindenwood camp. Is there's a lot of receivers and not a ton of defensive backs. Everybody wants to be a receiver. So, a little hint to some of you guys that are like good receivers, but not unbelievable, or you're a little bit taller, try defensive back at some point. Yeah. That's like, it's to your advantage. And I know like you guys think that, oh, well, I'm really a receiver and I need to get the ball in my hands. Defensive back is a little bit easier way to go. Yes, it's a very hard position, but there's a lot of room because so many guys are caught up in thinking that they're receivers.
Yeah. And you know what's great about that is there were some dudes who flipped over, like a Milan Green from St. Mary's, who absolutely killed it. Guy who's going to be in that 4.5 range, 40-yard dash.
Yeah, he did great.
9.8 broad jump. I mean,
he helped himself.
Yeah, 34 or better vertical jump. He was killing it as a receiver. Hopped over, played defensive back, and guess what? He was shutting guys down like that too. Him and Jeremy Williams were just shutting guys down.
And I think this is one of those things to talk about too. And I think part of the reason why you go to combines when you're younger is learning to fight for your reps and getting in line. And I think so many kids are taught to be rule followers and that, but just kind of sit back. I'm not saying go butt in front of the line and steal every rep.
Right.
But if a guy's sleeping ahead of you and you can get that rep, or that guy's sitting back, like you take it. Like you're not trying to be a jerk and like starting fights in the line. But we had a young man that was kind of laying back, and I think his mom and dad were like, "Hey, why is he not getting reps?" And truthfully, the coaches had already talked to him like 3 or 4 times because they noticed he hadn't been going. Hey, get up there. And sometimes it just takes a nudging, right? And then once they get up there, they realize it. But it can be intimidating, especially for younger guys, freshmen, 8th and freshmen.
Really, really good talent.
Right. And then you realize like real quickly, like, like in the case of one young man, I actually assigned him to a quarterback. And then I turned around like 2 minutes later, the quarterback was thrown to someone else. And I was like, oh my God, what are you doing?
Right.
He goes, he kept sliding away and another receiver stepped up. So it's just a learning experience. So like when you're at these events, like part of it is like having some self-confidence and being willing to put yourself out there. Not every rep's going to be a good pass. Not every rep's going to be a great catch. Not every rep's going to be a defense. Like you might get exposed. You might make a mistake.
Yep.
You might not go your way.
You learn from that.
You got to learn from it. You got to build. And so hiding in the back of the line, though, it's really interesting. The coaches, as much as you don't think they're paying attention, they're scanning and kind of getting a feel for everything, right? And so, you're looking for kids that are up to every other rep where you're like, oh man, come on, this guy. But defensive back wise, kind of the same thing. Like guys will jump in if you're not going to get it. Like, and so you got to learn I think sometimes parents, you know, you look at like the way the combines are set up or like a mega camp is set up. It's set up, everybody gets to warm up, everybody gets to test, everybody does the skill work. And then when it goes to one-on-ones, theoretically, everybody should get the same number of reps, right? Maybe you get, if you're at the back of the line, whatever, you might get short at a rep or two, but long-term, you're going to get, you know, push comes to shove, you're getting most of the same number of reps. The tough thing is that when you get to that phase, it is more about kind of competition, right? And competition being, you got to step up and take what's yours, right? And so when it's your turn, if you lay back, someone else will take that rep from you. It's just simple as that.
Oh, without question. And we saw a lot of that. Saw a lot of guys battling rushing to get up there, especially with the linemen to try to get up because man, they wanted it. Those guys came ready for competition and just it was a fight.
Mm-hmm.
It was a fight. And in fact, I thought some people were going to lose. You know how like at elite during training don't wear a nice shirt.
Oh
right?
yeah.
I'm like, oh man, don't rip these nice
brand
shirts.
new, nice,
Brand new.
$20 shirt. You know,
in
like,
fact, I even told one guy, I'm like, hey, watch the shirt.
Yeah.
Watch the shirt.
They're nice shirts. They're real nice,
yeah.
and it's cool because you'll see kids wearing them out all throughout the off season. You know, like they'll under their jerseys or whatever. So it's kind of a cool
keepsake.
Yeah, it is. And so, but yeah, I thought the competition level was really good. I thought, you know, from a testing perspective, what great. I mean, I think the kids really, you know, they're always humbled by that laser.
Yeah.
They're always humbled by it. I think that's part of the process of learning how to test and knowing what your true score is when that laser start, laser finish.
Mm-hmm.
And then understanding kind of how to do it, right? Like going back to the drawing board, like, hey, look, my first step wasn't where it needed to be. You know, it needed to be here. Oh, that might be my start is not great or whatever it might be. And so, you know, at the end of the day, I mean, I like watching kids run the 40. Even if their time isn't great, you can tell how well they move by watching them run, right?
Correct.
And I think that's part of it too. And Lindenwood, the college coaches sit and watch. I think, you know, like I've talked to NFL scouts that will tell me like, hey, we really don't care about the 40 time. Like we, as long as it's within the range, like the fastest or the slowest in that range doesn't necessarily matter to us as much as how they move on the field. You got to believe your eyes and believe the tape.
And even in the 40, I mean, I can tell if somebody's fast but doesn't have good technique, is not running properly.
So the start is the killer. I mean, as soon as, especially if someone's like twitchy and their hand moves subtly before they get going, say they have kind of just have like a little tick and they turn, once they turn that hand, even if there's a delay, it's already going. It could be 0.3 of a second.
Getting out of that start is just so difficult for so many guys because it's not something that they do. If they're not a track guy, they're not doing that on a regular basis.
They're not.
But, you know, kudos to your staff. Kudos to Marcus, especially. I mean, guys were standing in line wanting to get his knowledge dropped on them as to how to run it properly.
Yep.
And so, yeah, your guys were incredibly helpful. It wasn't just a factory, just, okay, next. You know, Nick and Marcus and all your guys.
That's a good crew of guys. I mean, they've done it so many times, and Ray's done it so many times. And so it's one of those things where I really do think it's such a good service to the kids. They don't realize it when they're in there. It just kind of seems like, oh my God, it's just one more thing, test to test to test to test. Those 4 tests paint a really good picture athletically of who you are and then where you kind of need to be. And so what I told kids, and anytime you go to a combine, and the way I think we do it, how we publish it, it's, you know, it's on a spreadsheet for you to see with everybody. But I think if you're like, you know, want to be really dig into it, take that spreadsheet, you know, copy it. You could even remove the names. It's almost irrelevant, but just find, you know, say your kid's a running back and he's in 2028. Find the other 2028 kids, kind of see height, weight, proportionately where you're at, and then see what your 40, your broad, your vert, your you know, pro agility, all those tests, what they look like versus the other kids. And then, you know, look at the junior and senior running backs to be and see what their scores were, right? And kind of look and see where you rank, because that is really important. It gives you an idea of where you're at, what it looks like, kind of, and then what you need to work towards, or maybe you're already there, right? You might be.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And that's why it's important if you come back for multiple years. So you have an idea where I started, where I'm heading. Jackson Hunter is a kid like that from West Plains, Missouri. In fact, his dad sent me I guess he saved it. It was a tweet after Jackson's first experience I think he might have been a ninth grader, right? And so
Yeah.
he posted it out. Sent it to me, and of course, this past year, Jackson came absolutely killed it, right? Just possibly the most athletic, big defensive lineman that was there, and and he was really excited about just the work, and of course,
progress, right? I mean,
you gotta
humans
have it.
love progress,
and that lets you know, right,
Yeah.
where you're at. If you're not making progress, you're like, okay, well, that's it. I've reached my ceiling. This is it. But Jackson keeps going. In fact, I tweeted out his 9.2 broad jump, and Dad's like, he had 10 college coaches follow him after you tweeted out his 9.2 broad jump.
Yeah, you get over 9 foot in high school, and especially as a big guy.
That
just shows explosiveness.
Correct.
It's like, okay, and then you look at like I think you posted Rocco Marriott, broad jump, I think 10 foot. You're right there at 10 foot.
Yeah.
I witnessed, I think it was Tristan Moss from Timberland do 10 foot.
Yeah.
You start getting 10 foot.
Right.
Now what's funny is then you think about that and you got a Brady Cook going 10.8 and didn't even train.
That's wild.
Yeah, like at 215 pounds,
yeah,
right?
214.
So you look at that stuff and you go, wow, there's still more work to be done, right? And so it's never really done.
No.
And I think that's the beauty of being an athlete and competing and trying to get better. Again, at the end of the day, you can be a combine king, but you got to put it on the field. And that's like that transition period from the skill period where we go and do the skills and then get them out there on the field and they start to do like their one-on-ones. To me, that always kind of like really kind of starts to separate the the cream from the from the rest, if you will,
exactly.
right? And
the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely guys that test well that don't play as well.
Right.
There's guys that don't test as well that play really darn
really
good.
well. Yeah.
So
you're absolutely right. Speaking of Timberland, I mean, Sky Owens, he deserves a mention.
Yes.
I mean, he's right there with Rocco. I think they were like 1-2 in everything. And I mean, Sky, wide receiver from Timberland, 36.5-inch vertical, the 10-foot broad jump, the 4.0 pro agility, and it's just, and also on the field, it translated well to the field. And I'm telling you what, DeAndre Jones, another Timberland, you guys should be pretty darn successful. Hudson Serrano, their quarterback
athletic as can be.
Yeah. So it's like the talent is there.
I would agree.
Caden Ford, big offensive lineman, 6'6". I mean,
I would say as a group, they may have had them, CBC,
St. Mary's,
and I think Parkway West had a pretty good showing.
Parkway West had a pretty good showing. The Blue Spring South guys did well. I mean, the
it is cool when there's a groups of kids from the same school together.
Really is,
I like that. I think
Rockhurst had a really good group.
Yeah. Again, that's what I love. You get the Kansas City kids, you get some St. Louis kids, you get kids from in between, get the Springfield, Illinois guys. I think
Cam Atkins from Wichita East made that trip over.
I love when the kids do that because
me too.
It's fun to get to see where you're at against another group and you're getting yourself out of your comfort zone.
Correct.
And I think there's a lot to be said for that. And I think this summer when you do camps, obviously you got to do the regional stuff because you got to be around the guys recruiting you, especially in Lindenwood camp because of the mega camp. But then, it's tough to go too far away unless you have a contact there or they're recruiting you.
Yeah.
Because, you show up in South Florida and no one knows you.
Right.
That's a different story.
And you don't want to make your parents go broke because we've known parents who like put that stuff on their credit cards and every camp across the country. And it's like, what are you doing?
So the camp strategy, like I'll tell you the camp strategy I have for my son, who's going to be a freshman, right? He's going to obviously do all his high school stuff. But it matches up pretty nicely. So the only thing I don't know what we're going to do is Memorial Day weekend because it's typically the way it fell this year. That typically might have been the Lindenwood camp this year, or that weekend after. So there'll be a few things like that. The weekend after Memorial Weekend. So Sunday, June 1st, there'll be a lot of camps going on.
Oh yeah,
got to figure that out if there's going to be something there, and then it's going to be Lindenwood. 6 and 7.
He's going to be at that KC varsity at his.
He'll be at the KC varsity.
Yeah.
And then I'll do the St. Louis Metro football coaches, which is May 12th. So May 3rd, May 12th.
Yep.
And then he'll have a little bit of a break. And then it'll be whatever happens Memorial weekend or that weekend after. Then Lindenwood, 6 and 7. And then it gets crazy. Then
Is he doing both days?
Yeah, I'll do both days.
Ooh.
Yeah, he's going to do both days. He's got no choice. I'm working it.
Wow. Oh, there you go.
So he'll
8th
do
grader.
both days.
Yeah.
And then that Sunday we'll be at, I think, Purdue.
Mm-hmm.
Got invited to come to that camp, which would be good. Following week, football camp with his school. Leave Thursday, do Mizzou. Get done with that. Then come back. They have the East Central football camp, which I know you'll be at.
Yep.
And then that Sunday, I think it's either that Sunday. I think it's the Father's Day. Then he'll be that Monday. Excuse me, Florida State. Got invited to come to Florida State for a camp there, so then we'll be at Florida State. So, and you go, well, that's kind of crazy. And then I think after that, that's what's weird. The camps kind of die down. That's those first 3 weeks, and then it just kind of goes dormant. There'll be a few things in July potentially. The Manning, we'll do Manning camp, which is we do every year.
Last year.
Last year, that'll be like an every year event for him through high school. Is what I'm thinking. But yeah, so you look at you go bam, 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 and there it is. So he's going to do regional. He's going to do the combines here, right? Then he's going to do the mega camp,
right?
Then he'll hit one big school like Lindenwood, or like Mizzou after he's done a big mega camp, and then locally, then Purdue's one that has expressed interest to have him come, so he's going to go.
Yeah.
And then Florida State
could be his first offer.
We got a guy that coached, a guy that's coached in our program who knows him well, and then put an invite and said, "Hey, you guys should definitely come to this. We'd love to see you here." And so that's going to be the tough one to make.
Well, what's interesting is, and I know you said it to the group of, what was it, like 250 kids who were at the elite combine. So the elite combine, the KC varsity here in St. Louis, and the St. Louis Metro football coaches, Lindenwood camp, they all have something in common, and that's guys who are going to be there running it.
Yeah, we tested all of them. We help run the operations and run a show on each of them, and so I think
coach. It's just such a natural. You go to these events, right? You're prepared come Lindenwood time. You're not gonna have anything thrown at you that you haven't seen,
right? And you're gonna feel a little comfortable around those guys because it's the same guys doing the starting at the 40, right? And so there's some familiarity, and to me. Because let's say we go to the Florida State one, how they run that is going to be completely different than how Purdue runs theirs or Georgia Tech runs theirs, right? Mm-hmm. And so in some of them, it really is just as simple as guys standing on a cone and then everybody kind of go at the same time. Someone's starting them, and then guys at the end popping them at the end, and then kind of getting a loose time, which there's a lot to be desired with that method because a lot can be left in the wind. But to me, especially when you're a freshman, 8th grade guy, you shoot kind of high, right? And say those things don't go well, like that. Maybe your sophomore year, you do it. After your freshman year, you do it again. And then say you're reading the tea leaves and they're like, hey, your size isn't where it needs to be, or your strength or speed are not where they need to be. Then you start pulling back and doing more regional, because those smaller FCS and D2s are not going to go offer freshmen and sophomores in high school. Right. They're not going to do it.
They don't have to.
They don't have to, right? So now you're a junior, senior, and you kind of fit their mold. They have no problem doing that, right? And so that's why I think you start big, and if you stay big, you can stay big. But if you need to pull back, you can always pull back. So it might sound kind of grandiose when you're younger going to those bigger camps, but that's the time you can do it because you're playing with house money. No one expects anything of you. If you come away with an offer, unbelievable, it changes your life and things in the trajectory you're on. If you don't get it, it doesn't end your world. It doesn't matter, right? It's not going to preclude you from playing college football, right? So I think it's that deal. The problem is now on the reverse, now you're a senior to be, and you're doing that same camp schedule I just said for this 8th grader. Yeah. And you have no interest in those schools and no one's talked to you about coming to their camp.
Right.
I think that's a dangerous move.
It
I
is
think you're wasting time and money and energy.
unless you've been training and you know you're going to kill it in everything that you do, both testing and skills wise. You know, if you're that guy, if you're just some freak athlete, fine. But you're absolutely right. And I unfortunately see way too much of that. Guys are telling me their camp schedule. I'm like, why are you going there? You know, or have you talked to the coaches? No.
I'm just going to show up. So, but part of that exercise of going back and looking. So we mark the top 10 in each category or thereabouts in light in green.
Yeah.
You can do the same thing for like if you're a 10th grader, do it with the 10th graders, right? But if you're a junior, you know, rising senior, and you're not in that your skill position, let's say, and you're not, you know, in that same realm as some of those other guys, the top 10, you know, and you're going to go to, let's say, I don't know, Washington to go because you love the Huskies, right? You want to go to their camp. Man, you're showing up sight unseen unless they've communicated with you. But if you're not testing here in the top 10, you're not going to test in the top 10 there. And they're looking for guys like that, right? USC is looking for guys like that. And so now, if you have some unbelievable film that, you know, and some different things you can do, then yeah, fine. But I just know going in that you might not have the same response because again, if you're not killing it here locally, it's a good starting point to see where you are, but you're probably not going to you're not going to turn a lot of heads when you're like 3/4 of the way down or halfway down in the testing and size when they get you rolling out there wherever you are. So just be careful with the camps. I would always say the best idea would be for guys that are rising juniors and seniors, hit the mega camp, obviously, you know, from a college perspective, right? You got to do the combines leading up to it to prepare.
Right.
But once you get to, you know, the camp season, you got to do Lindenwood. That's a non-negotiable. Everybody does it because there's so many different schools there that you can
on
talk
every
to.
level.
Every level. So you can kind of, it's a wide swath.
Yep.
And then you kind of leave that and know who's interested in you. So it helps you. So then beyond that, JP, then you're looking at going at like, okay, you know, say you have not gotten a lot of FBS Power 4, you know, attention. You should be looking directly at the FCS and the Division II guys, right? And then also maybe some NAIA, just depending on kind of like the level of attention you're getting, say at Lindenwood.
Absolutely. I tell guys when they're first starting out, they want to go to camps, pick a school on every level.
Yep. Right.
That way you're set. Everybody gets a good view of you. And outside of Lindenwood, a camp that does have some good NAIA schools, D2 schools, William Jewell. That's another good one. And guess who runs that?
KC Varsity.
KC Varsity. So you go to the KC Varsity, you want to go to William Jewell, you want to go to, I mean,
they have a good, it's not the same selection as Lindenwood, but there's other schools there that are smaller schools that you could walk away if you want a confidence builder and get some offers, right? Then go get some offers and get some buzz. You know, but the other thing is too, if say you are like a Division I level guy, and people have told, like numerous people like myself or you have told them, you do want to kind of be careful putting out too much.
Yeah.
If you get offers that are like kind of, let's say, lower than where you need to be,
right?
Like let's just use Elliott Hummer as an example. Like I don't even know what other offers he had before NIU. We knew he was a Division I guy. Right. He shouldn't have been putting out a bunch of offers about
from
like
Lincoln University,
like Lincoln or people like that, because and that's no disrespect to those guys. He's an FBS level player.
Correct.
Height, weight, speed, and performance on the field.
Correct.
So that's who he is.
And you're absolutely right on that. And you hate to tell kids that, but you're not going to help yourself from a recruiting standpoint, because you can get pigeonholed if you start putting out that you've got a bunch of these offers. And in fact, somebody that we know who is currently playing at Mizzou started out like that and asked us, hey, should I post these offers? And our response was, no, you're better than that. Wait. Nothing wrong with those offers. You're absolutely right. No disrespect. But if you do that, schools will kind of pigeonhole you and be like, oh, he's that level of guy.
Yeah.
Because there's so many players out there, and especially now with the portal, they're not going to take the time necessarily to do that. But if you pick up,
Correct.
Okay, I got an offer from Colorado, people are like, huh, well, what's he got? I want to do that. And unfortunately, I saw a bunch of kids recently, and they're freshmen in high school. And I'm sure as soon as I say it, you're going to know what I'm talking about. But they apparently, some little NAIA school offered a bunch of their players that were freshmen, and they all wanted to post it because, hey, I got my first offer. Probably should have let that go by the wayside.
Yeah.
Because they are better than that, and they're going to get better than that. And you don't always want it to be about clout or you know.
And you don't want to disrespect the school that spent the time
Correct.
offering you.
Right.
But when you're a freshman,
Yeah.
you know, say you're
It's too
Rich Jane
early.
and you get UNLV, well,
Right.
you got to
That's
post
nice.
that,
Yeah.
right? You got to.
Yeah.
That's an FBS school,
because they were unsure whether even to post it or not.
right?
You know.
Right. Do I post? Yeah. I mean, going into high school, that
Right.
makes you look like kind of like a, you know, like you're braggart.
Yeah,
or
you don't
you're
want to be
like,
a braggart,
but the thing is like, look what it's led to. He's got a Mizzou offer. He's got other offers that are like, you know,
Pretty
like
much everybody just picked
KU,
up enough from Kansas.
right,
Yeah.
right. So yeah, I think you got to be. The game is crazy. It's not for everyone, right? I mean, we talked about it with the kids, like, you know, it's always shocking when there's like 250 kids there, and you tell them like, hey, basically, let's just call 12 to 14 you guys are going to get to play college football.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hear the chatter start, right? Because it's like, well, yeah. Well, you know, and then I always tell them like, look, you're a tighter group. So like out of the metro area, you might be the group of 200 that gets to go play over the next 4 years,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like 50 something a year is going to get to go play, right? So,
which is really even might be less than that with the portal now.
Well,
and we see people. I mean,
yeah.
you take Rocco Marriott, for instance, right? And I know I got some people from the KC area were like, you know, how did Rocco do? I mean, you know, everybody was asking, how did this guy do? And they can't believe that he doesn't have the P5 offers that he should have. And it's the portal, you know.
It is. It's the having of recruits, right?
Yes.
We've talked about it. Like these college coaches, they'll tell you like, hey, yeah, we're recruiting, you know, half the number of high school kids we used to recruit. And
right.
So it's really unfortunate, right? It's very unfortunate. We told the kids that part of the speech I gave was like, look, there's kids going to schools at levels that everybody's getting pushed down,
yes.
right? Yes, there are still some kids going to Power Fours, what do you want to call it?
Right.
They're still there, but not the numbers there once was. And then so those guys are now pushing to the group of 5. That Miami of Ohio's, the NIU's, those guys, Memphis, it's pushing down, right? And then those guys that used to go there are pushing to the FCS level, right?
Yeah.
And then it's pushing down then to the D2 level.
Oh, which is it's really great for the Missouri States and the Leonard Woods and the CMOs. I mean, they're picking up great value, you know, that they would have probably never been able to touch in years past outside of the portal.
And the tough thing is too, and then this I was talking to some guys at some local Division I schools, like regional. And the thing is like you got to be cognizant of, say you're one of those guys and your ultimate goal is to get to, you know, P4 school.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't have the same facilities at, say, you know, the regional Missouri Valleys and Ohio Valley schools.
Right.
And the D2 schools, they just don't, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of that's going to be incumbent upon yourself of being educated and understanding like what you need to be eating nutrition wise, supplement wise. You know, at Mizzou, they're giving it to you. They have a nutritionist on staff. You're leaving the weight room. Your protein shake with your stuff is in it, ready to go. JP has a special blend. I have a special blend.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's how they do it.
Yep.
That's not occurring at these other schools. So that is a competitive advantage. And I will tell you, like when we do like pro day stuff or combine training, it's very obvious to see the guys that have been at smaller schools from a nutrition and just like a nourishment perspective, some malnourishment going on, right? They're eating just regular food versus a kid at a P4 is eating at a training table. He's getting, you know, they're not feeding them crap.
No,
right? They're supplementing what they need to give them.
They're building players at
it's an investment.
Correct.
Right. I mean, it's a big business. So those people are definitely doing everything they can to build and develop those guys.
Sports cars finely tuned.
Well, you just look at Mizzou. I mean, I would their strength staff obviously has done an unbelievable job. I mean, they had 3 kids at the combine on the all combine team. And that goes back to
it's really the best that it has been.
Well, so that's a testament to their nutrition staff, the human performance staff and the strength and conditioning room. And then you got the trainers and doctors, right? And then the football side is the football side. But those 3 other components, the money that, say, a Mizzou or an Alabama or Auburn spending versus say SEMO, it's night and day.
Right.
And so, that's the advantage, and that's why you see such a higher percentage of those kids go to the NFL, because they are already professional grade coming out of college. And so it is a problem at those levels, because, and I do think they're going to get further squeezed as they start to take these games away from these bloodletting games where, Auburn's or whoever's paying, $1 million to play them. And those schools were using that for travel, for gear, for nutrition. I think that's going to be a huge issue going into the future when we start to see the new model come forth where they just don't play those lesser teams.
Without question, it is. And Mizzou should have Armand Membo in a commercial recruiting, because who he is now is unrecognizable from who he was as a senior.
Yep, I agree.
At Lee's Summit North. But no, it's fascinating. And with Rocco's situation, Rocco's eventually going to get there. If he has to be a detour because for whatever reason enough schools don't have, although it's a long process, he's still got a long way to go. There's no reason. I mean, it's a marathon, not a sprint. But he'll eventually get there because he is that guy. You don't put up numbers like he does. You don't throw the ball like he does and not eventually get there.
The one thing I think he's going to get faced with the situation because of his athleticism and size. Somebody is going to try and convert him.
Oh yeah.
That I even, I kind of mentioned that to them because I think it's one of those things. It's because of.
So let me ask you this question then. Can you be too athletic as a quarterback?
He might be getting into that area. I hate to say that because, he's putting up college level numbers in high school.
Yeah.
And so, to me, that might be frightening some people, I guess, to a certain degree, because I wouldn't think that it should.
No. But you think you might get some mad scientist coaches who are like, oh man, that athleticism.
Yeah, we could. Yeah. Put him at linebacker and see what he can do. Or put him at H-back.
Coming off the edge, yeah.
Like that, because that's where I think sometimes having those honest conversations with the coaches, because sometimes one of these guys, to be truthful, and we've seen it happen. I've seen it happen with quarterbacks a number of times. These guys will recruit you under one thing. And I can tell you, I know for a fact that there are some schools that recruit 2 quarterbacks one year, one the next. And when they do 2, they bring in 2, but one that they think may be able to transition to another position.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of quarterbacks who could play no other position, right? There's a ton of them. Like, what would Tom Brady have played besides quarterback, right?
Well,
not much else.
Right.
But he's a hell of a quarterback. So a guy like him is not going to be considered to be a tight end, whereas a guy like Josh Allen,
right,
say he got into a program where they had a better quarterback than him, he probably could have transitioned to tight end.
Right.
Right. And so that happens. And so, I think you got to be careful in recruiting too, and kind of looking to see what they've done with other quarterbacks that look like you, if they transitioned them,
correct,
or if they kept them. And I think,
you do. And so much
purely his athleticism, though, speaks that he should be playing at that level.
Right. And
not even close.
So much of it is, unfortunately, is trends. You know what I mean? You have trends. If they're doing that with very athletic guys, and other schools are doing it, other schools will pick up on it and be like, oh, well, we could do this. We should do this. But no, he's a quarterback all the way. And in my opinion, I would, if you got to go to a MAC school, go to a MAC school, and then, prove everybody wrong. You see it with people. Brett Gabbert was a guy who could have done that, had plenty of opportunity to do that, but he wanted to finish. He wanted to finish out there.
Speaking of, he just had his pro day, and I got the film. Man, probably one of the best exhibitions of throwing I think I've ever seen. He ran well. He jumped well.
What's he hearing as far as his prospects go?
I think he'll be an undrafted guy. I think that's the plan. But let me tell you, his throwing, if he would have been at that combine, probably top 2 or 3 guys there. It was like, I think he threw 72 balls and 2 hit the ground and they were through people's hands. They just buried it on him. But he's throwing 18-yard, outs and comebacks, and he's burying the ball and hitting these guys, and you see their heads kicking back to catch the ball because it's still coming. And these guys that have played with him,
right?
They're not even used to it, but he has got a hammer. I mean, he is. I would reckon his arm strength is as strong as anybody in that draft class and most of the guys in the NFL. And then what you get with him is he is very cerebral. He's very intelligent. Like, he's checking in and out of stuff. So my suspicion is he'll get into a camp. He gets into a camp. Let's say that he gets into a camp where there's a fair,
they
process.
Pick the right one. Yeah.
A fair process where they may actually bring in a third guy in.
Mm-hmm.
I could see him sticking around the NFL for numerous years once he gets in there.
Yeah.
Numerous years.
I think we're probably going to see both him and Brady, because if nothing else, is with his football IQ and as cerebral as he is, you want that guy help being almost like an added coach.
Yes.
On your team. He's only going to make your team better.
Yeah.
Right?
Because he's got a pedigree.
Correct.
He played early. He just had a few unfortunate injuries. Nothing crazy injuries wise. Everything's all healed up. But the thing with him is, from a mechanical standpoint, like, let's say he's 5'11 3/4, what they measured him at. He throws like he's 6'5".
Yep.
Brady throws like he's 6'5", right? I will tell you this. I'm proud of watching our guys throw, and I see other people's products.
Yeah.
When you put them side by side and it stands up and you're like, yeah, our guys can throw. Like, this is not some internet thing. These guys have been trained since they've been little kids. They know what they're doing. They know how to do it. And it doesn't break down, and it actually shows really well versus the other guys. I think that kind of stands out as like, hey, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. We know it works, and we know, we can always make improvements, but those guys have solid core mechanics that they learned when they were little boys. And you can still see it.
Well, the results are there. And in fact, with Brett, he was doing all that stuff you're talking about when he was in 8th grade.
Oh yeah.
And I remember being there and telling you about him. I'm like, he's the best gabber.
Oh yeah.
And this is, I believe Blaine might've still been in college or just gone to the NFL or at Mizzou,
Yeah.
And Tyler, as good as he was, I'm like, he's the best one.
It's funny. I was talking to their dad the other day, we were just going over some stuff, and there was Blaine's pro day. Jim Thomas was with the Post-Dispatch.
I was there.
He interviewed me just talking about Blaine, and I told him, and I'm sure the article sells somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And Brett was there in the stands.
A lot of money.
It was yeah. Brett was in the stands, and I said he'll be, when it's all said and done, he'll be the best one out of all of them. And so Chuck, the dad, was like, well, both older boys would agree with you on that. Like, he is.
That's true.
He's a stud. And so I think, the tough thing is that, coming out of Miami of Ohio, like, you don't get the same cachet as coming out of, wherever, Minnesota, which they beat Minnesota. Right. So it's like, it's one of those things where I'm pretty sure he beat them one year. But you don't get the same, but at the end of the day, when you get into camp and you're finally side by side with that guy, then that's when it becomes really important.
Right. What's interesting about Brett is he had, going up to signing day, the opportunity to flip to another school.
Yes.
Because I remember colleges contacted me coming up to it, about him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a loyal guy.
Yep.
He committed there. He had opportunities, because I know, again, colleges were trying to get him to transfer.
Yeah, for sure.
This is what I'm doing.
And there's something to be said for that.
That's character.
It is character.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Brady Cook, same thing.
Yes.
Could have gone other places. Things were not always going his way.
Mm-hmm.
He stuck it out. Mizzou benefited. Drinkwitz benefited. The Tigers are in a better place today because of it. And Miami's in a better place because of it. And I think those are things that, from a scouting perspective, coming out of high school, you could have predicted it with both of them. Coming out of college, you could predict it with both of them. Again, will that be weighed into the process? You certainly hope it would be. Like, if I'm building an organization, that's how I'm building it.
Without
guys
question.
I can trust, and guys that have the skills, but are also good human beings. Not perfect, but good human beings that make great decisions, day in and day out. I think, to me, those are the guys you put your investment in.
Yeah, I think Brady absolutely helped himself, and hopefully Brett's got a good advisor that they picked the right team. Because unfortunately, when it's the free agent route, so many people, advisors, agents, they don't necessarily pick
Correct.
the proper team that's going to give them the opportunity. They'll go with what's the best deal, or this kid's a fan of this program. This
Follow the
organization.
Chase Daniel model. He could have gone to Dallas
Man.
and chose not to, and ended
Right.
up down in Louisiana with Drew Brees, and that was
Yeah.
a hell of a setup for him.
Unbelievable. Because Chase is from the Dallas area, so I'm sure he was a Cowboys fan growing up. But he's like, nah, another smart guy. Another smart guy. I mean, the guys we were all talking about quarterback wise, smart guys. Rocco was smart guy. Brett, smart guy. Brennan, smart guys.
Those guys will all do well in college. I know it's nerve wracking for all of them. All three guys,
Yep.
top guys in the area, and they don't know where they're going.
Yeah.
And they're not getting a ton of feedback, right?
Right.
Which is, it sucks, but
It
it's
is
just part. It's
crazy.
just a portion of just what we got going. And then you see like kids in 9th and 10th grade getting offered,
Right.
and then it's like it's really disheartening.
But will that offer really be there?
Probably not.
That's the thing. Right. And just like I said, with the freshmen who are getting offers from this school, of course, they'd love to get these guys. It doesn't hurt them. Doesn't cost anything to offer people.
Yeah.
But
Go ahead and commit today.
Go ahead and commit to that. Well, I'm sure this one little school would really love to have commitments from those guys.
Will the coach still be there?
Right. Exactly. That's really the key.
Yeah.
I mean, what's really kind of shocking to me is the number of coaching positions that are open still in the high school level. I mean, we're coming up. We're 2 months out of practice is really kicking off. Everybody's picking up their gear and stuff.
Yep. And then there's schools that have not hired anybody.
And you really don't hear anything. I know Jennings just hired Darryl Green as their coach, which is good. I mean, that's a great move for them. Ray Peck over in Kansas City, that's open. I mean, you would think that they'd be able to get a lot of guys there. In fact, I imagine that a particular coach who was here up until recently and moved to take a job in Kansas, Coach Bouchard, I imagine, he'd probably have to be thinking about that one.
Yeah.
Because Ray Peck's like a small college. I mean, you're talking about 125 or more kids coming out, for your varsity.
Yeah.
Every year.
And they haven't hired anybody. Luther North has not made an official announcement, right? Have they?
We hear things. No.
We hear things, but they've not made it official.
Have you heard that to be a thing? Because I was just talking with the players.
Yeah.
And they know nothing.
Right.
They're in the dark.
And then I don't think Priory's hired anyone.
No. Principia's open.
Yeah.
As I heard, I think that just came open.
That's crazy. I mean, and they should be starting in April, starting their spring practices.
Right. And so that is pretty wild. Speaking of Luther North, congratulations to Jonathan Moore picking up an offer from Oklahoma. Was supposed to be at the combine, got invited by Oklahoma. Now that's when it's a good junior day visit, right? It's like, okay, I'm not going to come to the combine. I'm going to Oklahoma. Bam, they offer him.
That's
of course,
huge.
Jonathan has been at the combine the past 2 years.
Yep.
Came as a freshman, came as an 8th grader, and absolutely killed it there. And of course, that translated over into high school. And now he's picked up an offer from Oklahoma and I think Sacramento State. Surprise.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure Coach Wagner's probably like, man, I told you guys we should have offered him first.
That's crazy. They say Sacramento State's got a bunch of money. They're trying to go FBS. That's the whole the push.
Yeah.
So they got a bunch of money.
Good for them. I know they're recruiting the state of Missouri pretty heavily.
Yes, they are.
So good for them. But Jonathan Moore, another guy who's just really right there talented. I mean, from the area, and that's a pretty big offer. Now, again, with Jonathan, I see him as a quarterback. But he's really athletic. He's
the way he's built too. Yeah.
Yeah. 6 foot, 204 pounds. But man, just what a release. What really spins it. The velocity. Just really good. Now, what's interesting about him is I think he's a better 11-11 guy than 7-on-7.
Yeah, for sure.
And you've talked about that before.
I think, the best quarterbacks are definitely good at 7-on-7. The best 11-on-11 guys are much better at 11-on-11. The feel, the feel. There's certain guys that just probably just don't translate real good with the bodies coming at them. There's other guys that can live in that world that I think do really well doing the pressure and dealing with adjusting and reading true box counts and understanding what coverages are.
Right.
Where 7-on-7 there's essentially an extra 2 guys out there that you don't have to contend with a normal 11-on-11 game.
Right. A couple more guys worth mentioning, just picking up some offers. Obviously, Mason Martin,
Yep.
we've been telling him since he was in 8th grade, you're gonna be a guy. Just picked up Dartmouth. Jaden McCaster to Smat picked up a Cornell University one. Darius Smiley, who
Yep.
trains at Elite, picked up Southern Miss today.
That's a good
this
one.
Morning. That's a good one. He's on his way. He was just up at Mizzou. We'll see what happens there with that. Jack Morris, Warrenton, was just at the combine.
Yep.
And I'm telling you what, I don't think that's a surprise that picks up his first D1 offer from Tennessee Martin.
Yep.
Following just an outstanding
He killed it.
Elite combine.
Cade Holman.
Case Holman picked up.
Yeah, Holman.
Yale.
He's Yale.
Yep.
Yeah, because we said Dartmouth. So he's at Yale.
Yeah.
He's a guy who's on the rise, right? Big, strong.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I said, boy, you must have really good grades. I saw him at the combine. He started smiling.
Yeah.
I said, congratulations. He's like, on what? And I said, your offer. He's like, well, yeah.
Just so humble and just kind of expecting it. But
that's
train
awesome.
with you guys for
that's awesome. And they make the trip into town. I mean, it's not easy. It's not easy, but again, and he's not like on a team that's like unbelievable.
Macon, Missouri.
But he's getting out there and getting his name known, and he's been doing things. He got out of his shell, like out of his like little area, right? And so like he's now comes down, competes with guys from all around the region,
right?
And he has no problem doing it.
It was one of the standouts at the combine amongst the defensive linemen. Coach, former Hazelwood Central coach Van Veneta, coaching out there at Macon these days.
Yeah, that's right.
It's interesting. They seem to be able to pull the guys from St. Louis because
I wonder. Yeah, I bet he must love it. He probably loves farmland and all that.
Yeah, I imagine so. It was It's a little bit difficult for coaches at Central as of late.
Yeah.
So,
It's probably, definitely different coaching style, I'd imagine, right? Just being a little more rural and
versus,
but wasn't Jameson Allen there as well too at one point?
That's what I said. They seem to be able to pull the guys out of St. Louis. They want to go live in the more rural area for a little bit, coach some football.
Yep. Yeah, man, it's one of those things. Cool, small town environment. Get everybody excited about it.
Exactly. If you win.
If you win.
If you win.
If you win. If you don't win, you're out.
You're right. You want it, then you get out of town.
Yeah. Bye.
Right. Bye. So Elite Football Combine in the books. Coming up next, KC Varsity Combine March. We're in March. May the 3rd. You definitely want to check that out. Go to kcvarsitycombine.com for the St. Louis one. May the 3rd here, Parkway West. That's going to be a really good one.
Yep.
As well as the 2 on the 26th and the 10th in the Kansas City area at St. Pius X. Check that out. What else is going on? What's coming up? People should definitely be hardcore training for this.
Man, now's the hard push. You should be pushing now through June, right? Beginning of June. I know you're going to start a lot of practices with your spring practices. Do not confuse running plays and synchronization and choreography with developing your skills. They're two totally different scenarios, right? So I think those guys that keep pushing and keep doing their skill development are going to be far better off when the season comes and when the camps hit.
Yep.
They're going to be far better off than the guys that are like, oh yeah, well, I'm playing baseball now. I don't have any time to do this. You should make time for it. If you want to play college football, make time for it. Make it important to yourself. I know that a lot of guys are playing other sports. Do not let that be a distraction. Do not let that be an excuse. You still need to do the same things because before you know it, June is going to be here. Before you know it, August practices and season's going to be here. And that's it. A lot of you guys, this is your last dance. You better get it right.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And that about does it for us. It's been fun. There's where you can reach us on our social media. JP Rock MO on X for me. JP Rock Scouts U on Instagram. And you can reach Mr. Bierman, everything Elite Football
on X, and Elite Football on X, and then Elite Football Academy on Instagram.
Yep. So everybody,
EliteFootball.net on the old web.
Absolutely. And of course, football360show.com for all things Football 360 Show. Here, enjoyed ourselves. As always, get out, enjoy the fantastic weather, get some vitamin D, soak up the sun, and stay safe. And we will talk to you next week. See ya.